On August 6, 1945, something very important happened during World War II, which was a big war that lasted from 1939 to 1945. An American airplane called the Enola Gay dropped the first atomic bomb ever used in a real war on the city of Hiroshima in Japan. When the first bomb, called Little Boy, exploded, it caused an enormous explosion that destroyed the city and killed around 80,000 people right away. Many more people got sick and died later because of the dangerous radiation from the bomb. Hiroshima was left in ruins, and the people who survived suffered a lot. Just 3 days later, another American plane dropped a second atomic bomb, called Fat Man, on the city of Nagasaki. This caused another disaster, and around 40,000 people died because of it. In the wake of these cataclysms, Emperor Hirohito, revered by his people, made a solemn and unprecedented announcement on August 15. In a somber radio address, he declared Japan's unconditional surrender in World War II, acknowledging the overwhelming and devastating power of what he referred to as a new and most cruel bomb. This pivotal moment marked the end of the war and ushered in an era of reflection, reconstruction, and reconciliation. Aftermath of the bombing. Following Emperor Hirohito's announcement of Japan's surrender via a radio broadcast on August 15, 1945, a wave of jubilation and relief swept through not only the United States but also across the Allied nations. This momentous occasion, which marked the end of World War II, was celebrated as Victory in Japan, or VJJ. It was a time of immense joy and a collective sigh of relief as people rejoiced that the long and brutal war had finally come to an end. The formal surrender agreement was a historic moment in itself, taking place on September 2, 1945, aboard the U.S. battleship Missouri, anchored in Tokyo Bay. This event marked the official conclusion of hostilities and the beginning of a new era for Japan and the world. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which had played a pivotal role in hastening Japan's surrender, had left behind a legacy of suffering and uncertainty. The extent of the destruction was so severe that it was nearly impossible to determine the exact number of lives lost. Much of the infrastructure in both cities had been obliterated, making it challenging to compile precise death tolls. Nevertheless, estimates suggest that approximately 70,000 to 135,000 people lost their lives in Hiroshima, and an additional 60,000 to 80,000 people perished in Nagasaki. These casualties were a result of both the immediate impact of the powerful bomb blasts and the long-term, insidious effects of radiation exposure. The true magnitude of the tragedy lay not only in the numbers, but in the enduring physical and emotional scars that these cities and their survivors bore for generations to come. However, one story that is less told is the Japanese realization of the bombing. You see, after the bombing, the leader of the Japan Broadcasting Corporation in Tokyo got alarmed when the radio station in Hiroshima suddenly went silent. They tried to fix it using a different phone line, but that didn't work either. About 20 minutes later, the guys at the telegraph center in Tokyo noticed that the telegraph line near Hiroshima had also stopped working. Additionally, reports started coming in from smaller train stations near Hiroshima, describing a big explosion, although the details were unclear. All of these concerning reports were quickly shared with the Imperial Japanese Army General Staff. In reaction to this baffling situation, the military tried to get in touch with the control center in Hiroshima, but they couldn't get a response. This left military officials puzzled because there was no expectation of a major enemy attack or a large amount of explosives in Hiroshima at that time. So they decided to send a young officer on a flight to Hiroshima to personally investigate what had happened. They suspected that these reports might just be based on unfounded rumors. The officer's flight took about 3 hours, and he saw a massive cloud of smoke from the bomb while he was still quite far from Hiroshima. When he landed outside the city, he checked the damage and then promptly reported his findings back to Tokyo. It wasn't until 16 hours later when President Truman made an announcement that Tokyo finally received confirmation that the city had been devastated by an entirely new and incredibly powerful type of bomb. Now let's address the main question. Why did the United States choose to use nuclear bomb on Japan? Truman and his team believed that using the atomic bomb was a way to end the Pacific War quickly. They wanted to avoid sending American soldiers to fight in Japan and save many American lives. In early 1947, when people criticized the decision to use the atomic bomb, Secretary of War Henry Stimson wrote in Harper's Magazine that in July 1945, Japan still seemed determined to keep fighting instead of surrendering. At the same time, the US was making plans to make things even tougher for Japan by stopping supplies, bombing important places, and getting ready to invade Japan in November. Stimson explained, saying, "We thought that if we had to follow through with this plan, the big fighting wouldn't stop until late 1946 at the earliest. I was told that such operations might result in over 1 million American casualties." Another reason the United States gave for using the atomic bomb was to grab the Soviet Union's attention. Even though people like Stimson argued for it, historians have debated for a long time if it was right for the United States to use the atomic bomb in Japan, especially 2 times. Some military and civilian leaders said that dropping the bombs wasn't really needed for military reasons. Japanese leaders had realized they were losing even before Hiroshima. Secretary of State James F. Burns said on August 29, 1945, that Japan had already tried to talk to the Soviets about making peace. Even General Curtis LeMay, who was known for being tough, told the press in September 1945 that the atomic bomb had nothing to do with ending the war at all. Because of statements like these, some historians like Gar Alperovitz, who wrote The Decision to Use the Atomic Bomb, suggest that the real reason for using the bomb was to show off America's nuclear power and make sure it was seen as the top country in the world. Others have said that both bombings were just experiments to see how well the 2 types of atomic bombs developed by the Manhattan Project worked. Admiral William Bullhalsey, who led the U.S. Navy's Third Fleet, said in 1946 that the first atomic bomb was an unnecessary experiment. He stated that the scientists only saw it as an opportunity to try out their toy, so they dropped it. Well, we may never know if a second nuclear attack was really needed to make Japan surrender. Truman, for his part, didn't seem to change his mind that the bombings were the right thing to do. He did say that there wouldn't be any more atomic bomb attacks without his direct order the day after Nagasaki. Later, in a letter to his sister, Mary, Truman wrote, "It was a terrible decision. But I made it. I made it to save 250,000 boys from the United States. And I'd make it again in a similar situation." However, when investigators looked into the post-war situation, they found that neither the atomic bombs nor the Soviet Union joining the war were the main reasons Japan surrendered. They did play a part in speeding things up, though. The real game changer was the submarine blockade around the Japanese islands. This blockade caused Japan's economic downfall by stopping them from using their new colonies, sinking a lot of merchant ships, and making Japanese leaders realize the war was hopeless. The bombings also made the Japanese people understand that they were losing. The Japanese Navy and Air Force were severely damaged, putting the Japanese homeland at risk. By the end of the war, Japan's cities were in ruins, they had used up all their resources, and their factories were badly damaged. The government had lost its reputation and respect. There was a big shortage of food, and prices were going up fast, making things even worse for the country. So guys, do you think the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was necessary? Do you think it really ended the war? Let us know what you think about this in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay tuned for more amazing content. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time.